Good afternoon. Welcome to METV. It's good to be in the building. It's just going to be me and Heather today. We're having this discussion about denying fathers access to their children, right? We got into this conversation, Heather, due to a recent message that I put out. We have to stop denying fathers access to their children. We are harming the children. We are hurting the children. And before we really get off into it, of course, mothers can come on here and talk about the negativities of fathers. We get that. We know mothers have been denied as well. We know mothers have been abused, beaten, both verbally and physically. We know that in the United States that their investment in women is higher, much higher than the investment in men. But what we are denying is the fact that we have a major, major issue because as today we released our fatherhood film on One Story in our Good Fathers Only group because we didn't want to put it publicly where a bunch of mothers would get on and talk about their situations, right? Which I say it's our time, right? We're going to have this conversation because again, like you've been privy to over the last 6-7 years, when you first got involved, you couldn't believe it either. You didn't think that this even existed. And as you continue to walk and see and watch, you can see that one of the biggest issues that lead to poor fathering is we damage our boys. And usually, in damaging our boys, that means we have kept the boy away from the father. Now, I say this wholeheartedly before I get further into the conversation. How are you doing, Heather?
I'm doing good today. I'm really excited about getting deeper into this topic and sharing some perspectives, sharing some tools, and as we always do, look to solutions. And so I think it's a really important topic. And this is, let me make this clear, that this is not about judgment. That's about taking the good, bad, right, or wrong. Because we've all made decisions. We've all had choices. We all could have made a better decision or a better choice for our children. And so I think that sometimes we have to take a step back and reconsider who are we really trying to help. And then we have to also think our present, but we also have to look at our future, because everything that we do now is a seed of something that comes, after it. So I think we have to change our perspective on a lot of things too, and to remember that you can start today. That, it doesn't have to be the end, and because you made this decision yesterday, doesn't mean it has to be the same decision today or even tomorrow. So if we stay in the present and we kind of look at situations by looking at the present, then we can make better choices. And again, keeping the focal point on our children and understanding how to separate the two. How do you separate what's best for your child and what's best for your own emotional state or what your needs might be at that time, at that moment? So I think this is a really good conversation to have today.
Awesome. So back to what I was saying, right? This is not about all the things that you just said, but this is our time. This is about fathers being denied, which I believe, just on preliminary research, I constantly see the father denied, right? I'm constantly seeing the father denied in a way Literally, that is alarming. But what I don't understand, and I said this earlier, a young man asked me about my Good Father's Only jacket. And he was like, yeah, I got a friend who tried to start a fathers group, and we want to do some of these things. He said, man, but he asked about the jacket, right? And I said, you can get one. He said, me and my dad talks about this. I say, listen, man, we are one of the biggest contributors to the pipeline to prison in the game. We know the system is there. Yeah, we know. We talk that we know is by design, right? We say that, but our actions say different. And when our actions say different, it's saying that, Heather, you have a son. I'm the dad. One of the things I discovered that a lot of people don't want to talk about is we say that the man leaves. Well, after interviewing and talking to hundreds of men, they leave their children so they don't displace them. A lot of men can say, okay, let's blow up this house. You go your way, we going to take the house, I'm going to go my way, we both going to go over here. No, men take and go, right? And we say that they left, but they don't displace the children. But they're never given credit for that. Men go to court 5 times as much to see their kids than any other way around. Men are often not rewarded access to their children by the court. So y'all constantly putting these kids in court in harm's way. And when we talk about fathers being denied access, I want to make something clear when I make this statement. I am seriously, really begging a couple people to go into research. Something is happening to our boys when the father's not present at their birth. And when the boy grows up in the environment where there is no male, I believe we are causing damage to his cognitive growth, his brain, and everything else because he sees nothing that looks like him. Therefore, it makes him emotional. The boy gets catered. The girl gets raised. We have these things in place. And let me be clear. When we take these actions, Heather, there is a reaping component all over this world that we deny. We act as if keeping a father away from his son when he's trying to see his son, which I kind of understand because, recent statistics come out, 31% of these kids, 31% of kids that are in the households, the father is not the biological father. This is what they're discovering. I mean, we just had a 57-year-old man, 20 years, all 5 of his kids weren't his. So how heartbreaking is that? What kind of person do you become behind that, right? I go to court 4, 5, 6, 7 times. These men going to court just to be access to their kids. And they are constantly played with, pushed away. There's a certain privilege you can go into court with as a woman, and she can tell 5 lies. In the court, nothing's going to happen to her. But the first time he tells a lie, he is never going to gain access. It's going to be that twice as hard to see his children. Now, of course, are there cases out there where women are fighting to see their kids? Yes, there are cases out there. But I'm specifically talking about males because what I do, I talk about boys, men, husbands, and fathers. This is a big contributor to the prison system, to the failure in education, to our boys not developing, to our boys not becoming men, to our boys not becoming husbands or fathers. And just saw here recently that black men are not even contributing, get this, to where the, women can go. I forget what you call that thing where women can go and get a seed and insert. They're not going to these things and leaving their, what'd you say?
Sperm bank.
They're not going to the sperm bank. Black men are not going to the sperm bank, leaving their sperm. And it's a big shortage because black women can't get to that seed. So when you're talking about reaping what you sow, when we carry ourselves in a certain way, these are things that are in our possession. This is stuff that we must come together on and do. Life is hard enough being a single parent, but it's most definitely hard when we deny and fold and go into the system. Because where do our boys end up? Juvenile, prison, dead, homelessness, fight. Look, it's suicide. I mean, like the number of things that happen to young men without their fathers and young girls without their fathers is astronomical. It is incredible. And I can't understand culturally why we don't fight together for the important sanctity of fatherhood. I'm just blown away that we keep doing the same thing time and time and time and time and time again. So, with that being said, Heather, please take over because I got a full-blown rant in me. I got it out. I feel good, and I think this is a conversation as we are talked about support to mothers and fathers facing parenting, shared parent time. Now, I'm an alphabetical order guy, right? And so I'm always wondering why the boy comes before the girl and why the father comes before the mother. Like, I'm always in this area of order, right? Why do we mention these things in the opposite? But anyway, please intervene before I go to my next thing and you be looking at me like I'm crazy.
Well, I want to kind of start off by talking about who really is in the relationship. So there are 5 parties in the relationship, and we often overlook those parties. We only see the him and the her, or the mother and the father often. And so I want to introduce of course, we know the third party is the child. So, but the fourth party includes grandparents that are so often overlooked because they're just like the kids sometimes get denied access to grandparents. There's a lot of additional love and support and care in having grandparents and having access to grandparents. So, and that's on both sides, on his side and her side. And again, this conversation for me is one without judgment, without the good, bad, right, or wrong, because we all are guilty of it at any given point. And so, and then the fifth part of that party, which I think we really need to reassess, is what we believe. So if you believe your source to be God by the name of God or whatever names that you use, you have to have that party, who actually is the first party, but you have the fifth party also in this decision-making process in what's best for that child. So if you say you have a particular belief system, and in every belief system, this process is outlined. It's outlined. And if you're not following that system, then you're under man's law. You're under man's system. And so what they have in place in man's system are these guidelines. And so if you are curious or you need more information about these guidelines, I'm going to ask you to either email us, and I will send you, it's a 65-page booklet on the guidelines for parenting. So if you have a difficult time coming up with your own way that you're guiding this relationship between you and the parent, the other parent to your child, then default to the system. Default to this process that has a system in place, and that is in lieu of your own agreements. Then you have to have something that is guiding this process. And so again, so if you reach out to us, you can send an email to EMIY Inc. @gmail.com. If you send us your email, you send us your name and your email, I will send you back that guide so that you'll have some tools to use to navigate what is appropriate when you can't seem to work it out between you and the other parent. So I want to make sure that that's available. We're going to use some of the information from those tools today, just so that we'll have a process that we're going to follow. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. But again, first, consider that in this relationship, in this parenting relationship, that there are 5 parties involved. The most important one is the child. To me, the second most important party is your source. Whatever you get your spiritual source, your grounding from, whether that's religious, whether that's spiritual, wherever that is, that needs to be a part of this process. This needs to be a part of your conversation. This needs to be a part of those guidelines that you are instilling to keep your child safe. The second thing I want to talk about is where there is no agreement, where you can't pull it together, the information together, go to your default. And that, again, is this 65-page guide to help you to figure out how to manage and navigate. This is the default. So we're going to talk a little bit about those things. And I'm going to tell you, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 7 that I want to make sure that we share out of the list of 16. Okay? And so I want to kind of talk about those. So do you mind if I get started with that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So this is advice on the things that parents should do and consider versus the things that parents should not do and consider. Okay? So I'm going to start with the not do list first. The first one says, do not or should not argue with the other parent when the child is present or nearby. Why is that important? It's important, one, first, because a child's mind doesn't have the level of comprehension to be able to navigate the discussion and to pick out what's truth, what's not truth, what is best for them, what's not best for them. They're not fully equipped to do that. All they know is the emotion. And what you say is a mark that you leave on your child. And so, and remembering, if you have a male child and you're saying things about his father, then you have to remember that in the back of that child's mind, you're also talking about them. You're talking about your son when he becomes a father. You're talking about his son when he becomes a man. So he internalizes that. And in due time, that message that you shared about his father, he then internalized that message. And then it can become a form of resentment in later life. And so they never forget what you've said. So we tend to think that, oh, we're just a kid, they didn't understand, but it was imprinted in their memory. The tone that you used, now remember, and this is for moms, the tone that you used, remember, this is the same child that was connected to you up until their birth. So how you felt about things, how you said things, who was around you, that is also a part of them. They haven't forgotten that. That's embedded in their fiber. So when Calvin was talking about the importance of fathers being there at the birth of the child, but also as that child is growing and becoming a healthy spirit to be birthed into the world, you have to remember the things that you said, they can't be undone or unsaid. So if she didn't have a peaceful pregnancy and you were a part of that, that is a part of your child. And so we have to remember that. We think of things a lot in terms of convenience and a lot in terms of what is in the present. And so it's important, though, that we understand that what we speak over our children are seeds in their lives. So that is when they are born and unborn. We're speaking those seeds of thought, of emotion, of who they can become into their life. We have to speak life over our children. So be mindful if you're pregnant and also in the process of having that child, it is important to have the father there. But you also have to be, as fathers, you have to be aware and conscious that what you say and what you're speaking into them is what you're helping them to become. So speak life into your child. Speak good things. Speak prosperity. Speak good health. Speak wellness. Speak, that they're going to be the best part of you. Speak those things over your child. And that's at every level. The next one is another don't. Don't make negative statements about the other parent or the other parent's family. Again, you have to remember that is a direct reflection of them. You can't get around that. And if you're saying those things about their family, they know that you're also saying those things about them. And so if we can remove judgment enough to realize that what we say and what we're doing is impacting our children, that will really help us to have healthier children.
But see, that's the thing. Like one of the people that were in the chat says, true, but we don't know unless we're taught. And see, that's where the issue come in at, right? This is generational, right? And it's funny because me and Paul Poser, we talk about this all the time, but it's generational, right? So how we see it is so like, for instance, my son, two man is overcoming, Dominique overcoming, Cameron, they're overcoming. I began to overcome because of the situation with my parents. Although I never in my life, other than when I was 23, when my dad said to me the reason why I was going through something is because it's similar to what him and my mom went through. And I lashed out emotionally on the phone. And we ended up getting off the phone, and I didn't have another word to say to him. Didn't get a chance to say anything behind that conversation because he died. Right? And when you understand that our relationship was just beginning to build because he was denied access. Now, people like to talk about child support and things like that. Most of the kids just want to spend time with the parent.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the other thing that we understand. And we get with these kids, we get with our kids, and we spend time, which is why I didn't do that. Remember I told you, I said, I'm not about to waste my time being with you talking about your mother. I'm not going to do that. And I didn't. Even with all the stuff that my kids were bringing to me about their mother, I literally pulled up on them on several occasions and said to them, listen, I'm not about to do that. And y'all need to stop. This is when they was going on their phone. Y'all need to stop. That's your mother's business. Y'all need to stop. It's not none of your business. Listen, I need y'all to pray for you. Like, I didn't go into, this, that, and the other, the whole night. I went into teaching and telling them, here's how you handle the situation. I'm here. I'm always going to be here. I can help as much as possible, right? But spending time, right, that's the one thing that they took away from me. Go ahead. That just hit.
The other thing that I want to talk about is, this is another should not. You should not attempt to destroy the other parent's relationship with the child, which is what you just kind of said. So kids learn early, especially if you're separated. Kids learn early how to manipulate both parents. They know how to pit you against each other. They know the triggers that make you do or get what they want to have. And so we have to make sure that we are teaching our children, because they're learning from us. So they're learning the technique somewhere. Typically it's from us. So we've taught them how to be manipulators. What happens is they become master manipulators early. And so I think that's an important piece to recognize, that they do know what's going on. They may not be able to fully comprehend it. They only know what they know to do. If they know that something works, then you typically go with the thing that works.
We got a caller. Caller, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, this is Adrienne. Just wanted to comment on a couple things that you guys are referring to. Mm-hmm. I made a comment in the chat that, growing up, we don't know these things when we're having kids. We're just in a moment of love and romance, and, we're not making a good judgment. And sometimes our parents don't pass down those things to us. Like I was raised in a 2-parent home. But that was my stepfather. That was not my biological father. My biological father chose to use drugs and walk away from the situation. So as my mom had children, it wasn't passed down to her on what to do, how to do it, and then it was passed down to me. And I became the person that didn't know what to do, how to do it. I tried to involve my oldest two children's father in things and make him feel important. But when a man wants to do what he wants to do, he's gonna do it. So it was hard for me to be able to pull him in when he was into drugs, he was into hanging with his friends. So yes, it kind of was a unhealthy pregnancy with the arguing, the fighting, the different things like that. And then as the children got older, it was more arguing and fighting and misunderstanding, miscommunication, lack of dad being there. But now, as you educate yourself, that's the main key, is that you have to educate yourself as you become older and you start growing. Do you want to see your children have the same seed and the same impression and the same mindset as you had coming down the line that will be passed to their children? Yes. So I started doing things different as I started growing, which now I have a grandbaby, and I always tell my oldest daughter to incorporate dad. Even if he can't breastfeed, just sit next to him. Show him how to do different things. Show him changing of diapers. Encourage him why it's important to stick around, and be there for his daughter, not just to dip in and out or just to do it when you say do it. And court is like a whole nother day to conversate, but you don't need a mediator in the middle of a family that you guys make together. It's just all based on consistency, compromising, understanding one another. But that's something that you have to establish before getting involved in the intimacy of having a child. That
there, Adrian, and thank you. That there, in that whole conversation, is the reason why I wrote 15 things you didn't know about fatherhood. And as soon as I can get a break here, that's going to be the focal point of putting that book in front of hundreds and thousands, as many fathers, new fathers, older fathers. We need to understand our value and the things we bring to the table. And a lot of times men will do that. Why? Because we've convinced the men that our children are better in the hands of women, right? They're better in the hands of, I know what my mama, you hear them all the time. I know my mama raised me this. My mama. Well, okay, by the time you finish the 19th, my mama, the woman, doesn't want anything to do with. We don't understand that. We don't understand that we go out here, men go out here looking for the woman, looking for a woman like their mama, and totally miss the fact that they can't get that. You have to build a relationship. My son said it poetically. He said, "I didn't realize I was married to my mama." He was like, "Dad, I literally didn't know," right? Because of the conversations, and I automatically thought I could do that with every woman. That's not the case. Women have to, relationships have to be built. But we thank you for calling in, and appreciate it. Heather, you can go back to your next.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for calling in. I just wanted to say blessings for your grand, and that you being part of that 5 relationships. I mean, that really speaks to how important you really are. It's important for you and your grandchild to have a relationship. You are a part of that relationship. And so one of the pieces, tools that we have that we don't often have, and you talked about this too in your journey, you talked about seeking wise counsel. Right? You got to seek somebody with some experience and who's having some level of success in navigating. And I don't necessarily, it may not be a peer. It may not be one of your peers. It may be someone older, or it may be professional advice that you seek. But you have to seek wise counsel. You're not designed to have all of the answers, especially when we're at different stages of life. If you're a new parent, you really have no idea other than what you've seen. We have to get beyond what we've only seen to have new experiences. So I thank you for, again, for sharing that with us. So the last thing of the parents should not list is the parent should not consume excessive amounts of alcohol or other mind-altering substances before or during parenting time.
Don't get high on your own supply and from your children's eye. It is so, what you just said is Like, we just totally ignore that. We pulling our kids up to school, asking that they get an education, don't realize what they're doing. We're passing boys, so boys can't even form a freaking sentence, right? So educationally, you're not even involved in your child's life. You know what I mean? If it's, like I said, we got some imbalance going on. We will go to the school and fight like fever for our daughter. But our son, well, as soon as you get in the school, you hear it all the time. Oh, he, I don't know. And you go to blaming him just like you was blaming the man. And I'm going to say this, and you can continue. And I've been saying this, and I'm going to repeat it. If you got a man in your life, the conversation that you're having for your man, telling him he need to get out and all of that, and all that conversation that you have, that he ain't no good, he need a job or whatever, that's the conversation you need to be putting on your son, right? Your son has to leave the home. He has to become the leader of a home. The conversation that you're having with your son right now, you're supposed to have with your man. You got the conversations mixed up. Your man is gone. Your son stayed, and he never leaves your side. We are raising far too many of these boys that don't understand how to navigate a relationship, a home, and a life. And it's petrifying that we think everybody's supposed to turn up, and it's okay because I get high because I'm grown, and my kids don't have to. I just rather get high, right around my kids. I'd rather for them to get high in the house. How about not do it in front of them at all? If you got to do it in the privacy and keep it away from them completely. But the problem is that, we don't do that. We're going to pull up to school, get out the car, and the kid already in trouble because the kid going to walk into school smelling like weed. And guess what? That school has every right to send that kid home. Now you got another issue, and you like, well, it's legal. Like, you're not reading. You need to read and understand the real laws about it being legal so you understand to stop harming your kids, because you're smoking weed around your kids while their brain is growing. You're causing problems. And I don't care how you dress it up. You can dress a turkey to be a chicken, but I'm telling you, whatever it is that you want to do for your kid, you have to focus on the child. It can't be about you. And the problem is we've made it too much about you, me, and not about the success of the child.
Yeah, so we do have a lot of misinformation about understanding the effect of whether it's presented as legal. It's not legal for your child. It's not legal for a minor. And so your exposure, you having them around, you're exposing your child. So we have to, that's a whole nother conversation. But it is something to be mindful of. These are things that we have to be mindful of as parents. So whether that's information, that's new information, however you receive it, is something that you have now. And you have now to do something about it. And so now I want to talk about some things that parents should do. So we finished with the list. I'm sure we're going to come back up to some, though. We're talking about now the things that parents should do or could do.
Let me read this piece right here, because I sit on the fatherhood policy group. Let me read this piece right here. Michigan courts. Parenting time is the term used in Michigan for the child. For the time a child spends with each parent when parents do not live in the same home. In Michigan, a child has a right to parenting time with each parent unless a judge determines that parenting time would endanger the child's physical, mental, or emotional health. When it's in the children's best interest, this is fact. Courts prefer 50-50 parenting time schedules in which children spend time with each parent as equally as possible. The alternating week schedule is a common 50-50 schedule. That is not what is requested, and it's always requested in terms of paying. Go ahead.
Wow. That's a point to note. I just want us to make sure that, again, I want to keep in mind that when we're talking about this, our shared parenting, when we're talking about that, we're talking about relationships that are the best thing for your child. And I'm not talking about the judgment part of it. I don't like your lifestyle because you do a lot of marijuana in the house. That might be the case. Is the child being impacted by that environment that you're creating? we have to then navigate, and we then have to also talk about how do we still get our child to get involved with that parenting time. So if that parenting time then has to be inclusive of grandparents, get the grandparents involved. If you're not having a good relationship with the other parent, then try to involve their parent. Try to make sure that your child is connected to their family. The family is the one structure that God put in place for us. That is what we're looking at, generational. That is where we hear the generational curses. It is because of our decisions and getting outside of our source of strength, of guidance, whatever that is for you. We have to make sure that we're connecting and that we're really seeking wise counsel. So here are a couple of things that we need to do or should do as parents. The first one is focus on the needs of the child. Focus on what they need. Children need both parents. Kids need both parents, and I know that's one of the tags for good fathers only. But it's true. They need both parents, because regardless of what that parent, who that parent is, they're still a part of that child. There's still things that are going to show up. And moms, I feel you on this. There are things still that show up in your child that comes directly from the other parent. So you have to, at some point, you're going to have to still work through that difference and that change. Another one I want to make sure that we start off with, and this is really important when it comes to working with men, working with fathers, working with your husbands. Be respectful to the other parent. Now, how men see respect and how women experience respect are two different things. One, a man's level of respect and what a woman's level of respect is different. We look at respect through the lens of love. Like, men don't look at respect through the lens of love. They look at it through the need that they have, the emotional need that they have. It's different from the emotional need that we have. Our emotional need is love. Their emotional need is respect. So the way that they are valued, listened to, and allowing them to do the things that they naturally should be doing as men. That's protecting, that is problem solving, and that is providing. Those are really 3 P's of how, or are things that are innately in men. Where they get skewed is how we help to raise them and raise those expectations. If they're not allowed to do the things that they need to do, because a lot of us have had to take on, as women have had to take on those responsibilities and become the provider, become the problem solver, become the protector, we had to take on those roles because there was a break in the relationship between men and women. And even when we started to bring children into the world, that break continued to sever. We have to be about the business of healing ourselves as we are healing our children. And they get the benefit of both the healing and our drama and trauma. How we help them navigate that is going to be really important, but it's also a behavior that they model when they see it in us. We want them to model the healing process. We don't want them to continue to model the brokenness or the misalignment that we had in our relationship. And so they had to get here. So the fact that they got here meant that there was an alignment. There was a physical alignment that at least happened. So we have to acknowledge that this choice and this child was from both of us, okay? Just a couple more that I want to talk about what parents should do. The third one is encourage a relationship between the child and the other parent. And a lot of us do that, but we have to continue to be consistent as we do that. And sometimes it's more difficult, especially if you disagree and you no longer have the same feelings for that person that you had before. But again, we're going back to our number one. What is in the best interest of the child? And 2 more, Calvin, and I'll let you take a moment to breathe. Okay, the next one is develop a co-parenting consistency plan for your child. How do you help them to stay consistent? That's in the time that they eat, when they do homework, what's bedtime, and how we look at discipline. that's really important. So you want to go make a comment?
So, yes, all those are quality things, right? I always tell men, and this is, they can take it how they want. One, DNA test your child. Make sure that this is your child. That's the first thing. It's important for you to know for a fact that it is your child. I don't care if the kid look like you. I'm not interested in that. DNA test your child. The other thing that is important is not going back and forth having sex with each other. What happens when you do that? You start the breakup process of the spiritual tear, and then you bring the spirit that you were breaking out of your system. You bring that spirit back into your body, right? And then when you bring that spirit back in, it is going to cause issues. So now, as you were getting away from that spirit, you brought the spirit back. And then after you had the one issue, you get away from the spirit again, you bring the spirit back. And what that tells your soul and your spirit, it brings on a number of emotions that you're not able to handle. And so sometimes we get away with it, and sometimes we don't. And those of us that get away with it, it's going to show up later on down the road. The other thing to really go in, and all the women that's listening within earshot, right? You need to understand, and when we had this conversation on December 4th with our Mothers with Sons workshop, take your feet out the 5 doors that you have your feet in. Take it out your girlfriend's door. Take it out your boyfriend's door. Take it out the plumber's door. Take it out the comedian's door. Take it out your side piece door. Take your foot out of those doors and focus on you so God can bless you with what you need. When you spread yourself out like that, you are going to constantly have problems, and your decision making is going to be affected to the other parent, and in the process, because of that. So therefore, you're going to make decisions in spite of the other parent, because the areas that you need that person in, you have different areas to fill it up, which will cause problems. The last thing that I have to say, and I think this is on us to get out in front of this, I think it's important that when we become pregnant, we don't just go through Lamaze class, that you come and sit down with us and let us show you what the parenting model looks like. That is something that we will do in the future. It's something that, it's something that has to happen, because we got to get out front. 39%, right? Just think about this. We have a 39.8 single household rate. We're telling the America, and especially right now at this time, that we just don't love each other. And by telling this system that you don't love each other means you don't love your kids. And if you don't believe me, go look at the foster care numbers, go look at the juvenile numbers, right? Go look at the prison numbers, go look at the jail numbers, go look at the numbers for yourself. And I'm going to say this with as much confidence as I have in myself. We are failing as parents.
Yeah, that's heavy. It's heavy, and just really how that all connects to the work that we do. One of the reasons why we have this platform, the METB platform, is because we are continuing to grow in expressing how important it is for the restoration of families. It is so important for the restoration of families. And I just wanted to give another shout out to Adrian for calling in and sharing and continuing to grow and continuing to know that it is with age. That is where you start to grow in your wisdom, and you have something to offer. You have something to offer to your children. You have something to offer to those people around you who need your wise counsel. We need wise counsel, not just counsel. Because counsel can be, a group of friends, a circle of friends that may all be sharing the same experience, but not gaining the wisdom. And so we need to make sure that the images that we're seeing and we're putting on social media and the messages that we're taking in and that our children are taking in, that they're clear and they're defined toward their best self. not toward denigrating who you really are. And there's so many messages that can be confusing for our children to see. We give a lot of those mixed messages in our home. Calvin mentions this from time to time, that when you're driving in your car, you're on your cell phone, your kids still hear what you are saying. Even if they don't hear the other, you got your earplugs in, they hear what you're saying. And so we have to make sure that the message that we're portraying in front of our children is a consistent, positive message, because they're listening. And no matter if they're in the other room, and just as parents, you know, your kids hear, I hear stuff repeated back, or I hear my son say something. Oh, Mom, were you talking to me? You can't hear me say clean up your room, but you can definitely hear me talking this conversation. And you can repeat back something I said. Mom, why'd you say that? Why'd you tell them that? Right, dude. And which is that's my check. That's my emotional check. That's my parent check. It's not be quiet, nobody's talking to you. That means that you hear what I'm saying. I don't acknowledge that. I tell you to be quiet and stay out of my business, right? That should be telling you something. That is a sign for you that perhaps what you're saying and what you should be saying that they're hearing should be a positive message that they can internalize and build and grow from. Not some of the sidebar talk that we often have. So be careful, be mindful that your children are always watching, they're always listening, and they never miss a thing. Now, they may not interpret it in an adult way, but they're looking at the lens through the lens of a child. So they can only interpret as much as their a mind will allow them to interpret, but they never forget it. It's always there. So plant good seed in your seed.
Okay, tell them where they can reach you at.
You can reach out to me at Heather to Heteru. You can reach out to me at yourinspiredjourney.com. You can give me a call on our Your Inspired Journey line at 313-759-7855. Again, that's 313-759-7855.
So, like many things, I guess this is where we exit the building. It's our time to go. So, one of the things that I want to make clear in this, I don't mean no harm. And I think a lot of times people take these conversations to heart because we can't just have conversation. It's always emotional. But the one thing that I want to make clear, more and more, yeah, both parents are important. But you better go take a look see how important that father is. We have been in this society. We have gone through civil rights. We've gone through women's rights. We've gone through wars. It's father's rights time. It's time for you to recognize how important the dads are. And go get that information. Maybe we'll make the better decisions and not be so pushy and disrespectful to the husband we have in our house. Then we get out here and find out it's not that many out there because we're not raising. We're not doing a great job. And so for me, I'm going to make this clear. Please, whatever you do, put your family first. Don't hesitate to love on the man you have. Be proud of him. Tell him that you love him, and vice versa. Respect that woman. Never put your hands on that woman. Love her with the proper words and the proper gifts, and learn to love her the way she needs to be loved. My name is Calvin Mann. God bless you and encourage me. I'm young. Peace.